Vanguard Exiles is an auto-battler that feels quite different to play. The game comes from Richard Garfield, the guy who made Magic: The Gathering. What makes this one different from most auto-battlers is that it feels more like a strategy board game than the usual endless progression grind. The main single-player mode is called Gauntlet, which is a difficulty-based progression system, where each level gets harder with new modifiers and handicaps, and it can scale up pretty much infinitely with the procedurally generated challenges. You can also jump into PvP matches against other players, if you want the competitive experience. Each match is its own contained experience. Thank you at this point to the T Division for sponsoring this video and accepting my editorial independence. So here's how the game works. You pick a faction. There are 3 right now, and each faction has its own set of units with different abilities and playstyles. The Undead faction, for example, has zombies that spawn when certain units die, while other factions focus on ranged attacks or magic. The actual battlefield is made up of hexagonal zones, and each zone can have different effects. Some zones give you extra gold when you capture them, for example. Others can give you permanent stat boosts, and some have negative effects that can mess with your strategy. The game does play out in phases. During the Barracks phase, you spend gold to buy new units or actions. Actions, by the way, are like spell cards. Then you move to the deploy phase where you actually place your units. Once everyone is placed, the combat happens automatically, but the outcome depends entirely on how you set things up. This is also because the units have different attack patterns. For example, some have first strike, which means they attack before the opponent can hit back. Others have last strike, which is obviously worse. Now, what keeps things interesting is that the map changes each round. New zones appear with different modifiers, and you have to constantly re-evaluate your approach. The zones can also have terrain effects. In Gauntlet mode, instead of just making enemies stronger as you progress through difficulty levels, the game adds modifiers and handicaps to both sides. It's designed this way to keep it from turning into a pure stat check. The game also has daily challenge modes, if you want something different each day. The Gauntlet structure does give you something concrete to work toward, and if you're starting Gauntlet for the first time, there is a tutorial that walks you through the basics, but you still have to find most of the more complex stuff out yourself, using tooltips. When you play PvP, you face off against other players with rated matches, and each squad you build has its own separate rating, based on how well it performs. The developers are planning to add ranked leaderboards and tournaments later, but right now you can jump into matches. The variety comes from mixing and matching units within your faction, and finding combinations that work well. The fact that you're making new choices each round, while also adapting to new zones, means the matches don't get repetitive fast, even if you are using the same faction. A few things to keep in mind though. The game is in early access, so the content is still limited right now. Essentially just 3 factions and 3 realms. If you're someone who needs a lot of variety or different factions, you might want to wait until more gets added. The developers are working on a campaign mode, more factions, and new zones, but those are not here yet. Also, since it's early access, your squad ratings might get reset as they balance things, so don't get too attached to your ranking progress. The learning curve also is pretty steep even with the tutorial. There are a lot of mechanics to wrap your head around, and visual clarity can also be an issue sometimes. It's also not exactly your typical auto-battler, which in my book is a good thing, but if you go in expecting a traditional auto-battler experience, then you will not be disappointed but probably confused. It's closer to a digital board game. The core gameplay is very solid though, especially if you enjoy games where you need to think several moves ahead. The game does have a playable demo right now. And this sentence concludes today's video. If your time was respected, a like or comment is very much appreciated.